Enron. It sounds like a futuristic energy drink, doesn't it? Well, back in the 90s it practically was. This Houston-based energy giant was the all-American success story. They were on the fast track, a Wall Street darling. From humble beginnings as a pipeline company, Enron transformed itself into a trading powerhouse. They dealt in everything from natural gas to internet bandwidth. Their stocks soared, making executives rich and attracting investors like moths to a very expensive, very illegal flame. Enron was the epitome of the new economy. They were innovative, aggressive, and seemingly unstoppable. They even had their own branded pens. You know you've made it when you've got branded pens. But behind this shiny facade, something sinister was brewing. Like a pot of chili left out in the Texas sun, things were about to get real funky. Now, every good scandal needs its cast of characters, and Enron had a truly Shakespearean lineup. These weren't just any executives, they were the masterminds orchestrating one of the most infamous corporate frauds in history. At the helm was CEO Kenneth Lay, a man who looked like he could sell you a used car, or a billion-dollar lie. Lay was the charismatic leader who convinced everyone that Enron was the future of energy. Then there was Jeffrey Skilling, the brash COO with a penchant for complex accounting practices and even more complex excuses. Skilling was the brains behind many of Enron's most dubious schemes, always pushing the envelope. And let's not forget Andrew Fastow, the CFO who played fast and loose with the company's finances, creating a labyrinth of off-the-books partnerships that would make even the most seasoned accountant's head spin. Fastow's financial wizardry was key to hiding the company's massive debts. These men, driven by greed and ambition, were playing a high-stakes game. They were not just bending the rules, they were rewriting them to suit their needs. They were masters of deception, using smoke and mirrors, or rather, creative accounting and legal loopholes, to inflate Enron's earnings and hide their massive debt. Their tactics were so sophisticated that even seasoned investors were fooled. They were like the financial equivalent of those magicians who saw a lady in half, except in this case, they were sawing the entire global economy in half. Their actions had far-reaching consequences, affecting not just their company but the entire financial market. And they were doing it all with a smile and a wink. Their confidence was unshakable, even as they led Enron and countless investors toward disaster. Here's the thing about cooking the books. It's a lot like making a souffle, except instead of eggs and cheese, you're using fabricated transactions and offshore accounts. The ingredients might look different, but the process is just as delicate and prone to failure. One wrong move, and the entire concoction can collapse. And if you're not careful, the whole thing can come crashing down. Just like a souffle that wasn't handled with care, Enron's financial structure was fragile and unstable. Enron's recipe for disaster was a complex concoction of accounting trickery. They didn't just bend the rules, they twisted them into a pretzel of deceit and manipulation. They used something called mark-to-market accounting, which basically means they booked potential future profits as current revenue. This method allowed them to paint a rosy picture of their financial health, even when reality was far from it. Imagine going to the bank and asking for a loan based on the money you make from selling lemonade next summer. It sounds absurd, right? But that's exactly what Enron did on a massive scale. That's mark-to-market accounting in a nutshell. But wait, there's more. Enron didn't stop there, they took their financial wizardry to new heights. Enron also created a web of shell companies to hide billions of dollars in debt, making their financial statements look as appealing as a plate of Texas barbecue. These shell companies were like hidden compartments in a magician's hat, concealing the true state of their finances. Investors were fooled, analysts were impressed, and the money kept pouring in. The illusion was perfect, and everyone wanted a piece of the action. But just like that chili left out in the sun, the truth was bound to come out eventually. The stench of corruption couldn't be masked forever, and when it did, the fallout was catastrophic. Remember that complex house of cards you spent hours building as a kid, only to have it collapse with a single misplaced breath? That was Enron. A company that seemed invincible, built on a foundation of innovation and ambition, but ultimately, it was all a fragile illusion. Just like that house of cards, it took only a small disturbance to bring the entire structure crashing down. It all started with a few whispers, a couple of skeptical analysts who dared to question the company's sky-high valuations. These analysts noticed discrepancies that didn't add up, and their murmurs began to spread through the financial community. Then a brave whistleblower, Sharon Watkins, sent a now infamous memo to CEO Kenneth Lay, warning him of potential accounting irregularities. She had the courage to speak up when others remained silent, hoping to avert a disaster. She wrote, "I am incredibly nervous that we will implode in a wave of accounting scandals. Talk about an understatement." Her words were a harbinger of the storm that was about to engulf Enron. Her warnings were largely ignored. The executives were too caught up in their own success to heed the signs of impending doom. But the cracks were starting to show. The facade of prosperity was beginning to crumble, revealing the rot underneath. In 2001, Enron reported massive losses, and their stock price plummeted faster than a 10-gallon hat in a hurricane. Investors were in shock, and the financial world was left reeling. The Securities and Exchange Commission launched an investigation, and the jig was up. The truth about Enron's deceptive practices was finally coming to light. Enron, the once mighty giant, filed for bankruptcy on December 2, 2001. It was a stunning fall from grace for a company that had been a darling of Wall Street. It was the largest corporate bankruptcy in U.S. history at the time. The ripple effects were felt far and wide, shaking the very foundations of corporate America. The house of cards had fallen, and it took a lot of people down with it. Employees lost their jobs, investors lost their savings, and the trust in corporate governance was severely damaged. Section 5 Fallout: The Human Cost of Corporate Greed. Enron's collapse wasn't just a financial disaster, it was a human tragedy. Thousands of employees lost their jobs, their life savings wiped out when the company's stock became worthless. Many had invested heavily in Enron, encouraged by the company's leadership. They were left with nothing but pink slips and a bitter sense of betrayal. Investors, both big and small, lost billions. Pension funds were decimated. The public's trust in corporate America was shattered. Enron became synonymous with greed, corruption, and the dangers of unchecked corporate power. It was a stark reminder that behind the balance sheets and profit margins were real people, real lives, and real consequences. Section 6. Ripples of Deceit: Enron's Impact on the Economy. The Enron scandal wasn't just contained to the company's Houston headquarters. Oh no, this was a financial earthquake that sent shockwaves throughout the entire United States economy. The stock market, already reeling from the dot-com bubble burst, took another nosedive. Investor confidence was shaken to its core. The energy industry, in which Enron played a major role, faced increased scrutiny and regulation. The scandal exposed the flaws in the system, the lack of oversight, and the dangerous game of deregulation that had been playing out for years. Enron's collapse was a wake-up call, a stark reminder that even the mightiest corporations could crumble under the weight of their own lies. Section 7. Justice Served: The Legal Battle. The collapse of Enron triggered a legal battle royale. Prosecutors sharpened their pencils, lawyers suited up, and the game was on. The Department of Justice went after the company's top executives, including Lay, Skilling, and Fastow. Charges included conspiracy, fraud, and insider trading. The trials were highly publicized, each revelation adding another layer to the already complex saga. In the end, Lay and Skilling were found guilty on multiple counts. Lay died before sentencing, but Skilling was sentenced to 24 years in prison. Fastow, who cooperated with prosecutors, received a reduced sentence. Justice, it seemed, had been served. But the scars of Enron's deceit ran deep, and the need for reform was clear. Section 8. The Sarbanes-Oxley Act: A New Era of Accountability. In the wake of Enron and other high-profile corporate scandals like WorldCom, Congress decided it was time to lay down the law, literally. Enter the Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002, or SOX for short. This landmark legislation was designed to prevent future Enrons, to restore investor confidence, and to hold corporate executives accountable for their actions. SOX introduced stricter accounting regulations, increased financial reporting requirements, and established a new watchdog agency, the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board, or PCAOB. It was a major overhaul of corporate governance, a way to ensure that companies were playing by the rules and that investors were protected. Section 9. Lessons Learned: Enron's Enduring Legacy. The Enron scandal was a watershed moment in American corporate history. It was a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked greed, the importance of ethical leadership, and the need for transparency and accountability in the business world. It showed how easily a culture of corruption could take root, even in seemingly successful companies. Enron's legacy lives on in the laws that were enacted to prevent similar scandals, in the heightened awareness of corporate governance, and in the minds of investors who learned a hard lesson about the importance of due diligence. The scandal serves as a constant reminder that even in the pursuit of profit, ethics and integrity must always come first.